Okay. Well, look, thank you for the opportunity to sharpen your understanding of Eagle.io, and we're going to run through the basic key features of Eagle.io and how to connect up your data network, how do we ingest data, how do we create charts and dashboards in a timely manner. So I've got some sample data that I'd like to run through with you. So as we log into our accounts, first thing you'll always see when you log into your Eagle.io account is that we have Google Maps that has been integrated into the platform, and it provides us with an overview of where we've deployed all of our monitoring assets. So here we are. I'm going to focus on some weather station data for this project to begin with. So let's flick over to the satellite view. I find it always a little more interesting looking at that particular view. And you can see here that we've got a project with 5 different locations, and each of these locations and the map markers, as we touch them with the mouse and hover over them, we will see the latest sensor data that's coming from each of these monitoring stations. So I've got some weather station data coming in from 5 locations in a remote mine in Australia. And that is the main map view, which shows you where those assets are deployed and provides a quick summary of what's going on at that site. If any of your alarms have gone off for a threshold that's been exceeded, it will be bright red here. So you will see that it's actually in an alarm state, and your icon color will also change from whatever you've chosen to bright red. Okay. On the far left, we have what we call the workspaces tree. And this is where we separate all the different projects that we're managing, or all the different end clients that we're managing data for. And so as we select one of these little workspaces, it'll expand on the assets that have been configured within it. They are their own units of security workspaces. So let's focus on, for an example, coal seam gas. We have 10 different locations, and now that is being displayed on the map. If I focus on, for an example, Pond A, the map view just summarizes that specific location. Okay? This is the map view. We also have different views of the data, and that's can be seen up on the top right up here. We have a list view, which will provide a summary of the sensor names that are coming in at that particular site and what state they're in at the moment. So you can see that we're looking at some weather station data, and the state for each of the parameters that we're focusing on are all in normal state, which is a good thing. It means that nothing's in an alarm threshold state. But as you describe different names for your alarms, they will appear here, and they will be red, and you'll know that particular sensor is reached an alarm threshold. We have an attachments field also, and this is a place where you can upload arbitrary files that are important to the project. It might be any PDFs that you want to drag and drop onto the user interface here, site photos, maintenance reports, telemetry configuration. Here's just an example of bringing in an updated site photo for this particular station, and that will just upload against it instantly. Okay. We have the chart view. And the chart view will allow you to obviously have a look at all the different parameters that you're focusing on at this particular site. And it will chart up that data, and you'll be able to see some of the historical trends. And what we're looking at here is what we call standard charts. So this will chart up automatically for you. You can zoom in and see a higher resolution of data at any particular point, okay, and then zoom out again. With these charts, you can expand on the size of them, okay, and then bring them back up again if you'd like to. We also support in Eagle.io the ability to create custom charts, and we'll have a look at a couple of these now too. So we can focus on our custom charts here. We have one configured up. It is a Windrose, and we'll be building one of these very, very shortly. We also support different types of custom charts from a historical chart, so we can bring in multiple parameters on the one chart and set up multiple y-axes for each of the parameters, and we'll also build one of them a little bit later. We have the events view up on the top right up here, which is our 4th view, and it is like an audit trail. It allows you to see how, when, and why, and who has changed anything in the system, from when did you share access to Stephen, when he logged in, when he created a new node, when did an alarm go off, who acknowledged the alarm and left a comment, even down to when was the latest acquisition of data for that particular site and how many records were processed. So you can really drill down and find out a lot of detail about what's going on with the data and who's interacting with it via the events view. And then finally, we have the last view up on the top right, which is the dash view. This is a place where we bring all of our different data sets together to tell us a story of what's going on in real time at that particular location. from geographical position to key photos that are coming in from a remote camera to charts and custom charts that we've built up can be positioned on these dashboards. And again, we will build one of these very shortly with some sample data. These are the different views of Eagle.io. Let's start from the very beginning and say, look, we need to deploy a new project in Eagle.io. The way we go about that is we create a new workspace, a new unit of security, and everything that you can figure out within this workspace needs to be associated with that workspace. That's how we share different assets in the system. So as we create this workspace, it will appear in the workspaces tree, and we can rename everything in the workspaces tree. So I'm going to call this one demo project. Excellent. And in demo project, I want to create a location. Looks like a couple of folks are just jumping in to join the meeting, so we'll welcome them in a minute. I'm going to flick over to the map view, and I'm going to zoom in on a location that I'm making a deployment of an asset. So as you do an install out in the field, I'm going to install one in Coffs Harbour. That's where I'm currently located. But Eagle.io has offices in Brisbane and in Sydney, but I've remained in Coffs Harbour with a couple of developers. Excellent. Okay, so we're down at the jetty just here, and I'd like to install a weather station on Muttonbird Island. So let's drag and drop the location marker directly on that island. We can go into the properties of that particular icon. We can choose a color. So I'm going to go bright green, and I'm going to install a weather station. So we'll get a little icon of wind there, and then we can upload a site photo. So I've got a picture of a weather station just here, which I'll use from my desktop. And now I have a location on the map. I've got an appropriate icon and site photo. There we go. Now it's time to bring data into this particular location. So in that location, I want to create from the workspaces tree a data source. This is where the wizard appears and assists us in configuring up an appropriate data source to ingest data into this particular location. There are three different types of ways that we support to bring data into Eagle.io. And the first one is we accept text files, CSV files essentially. If you can send your data into it as a CSV file or as a text file directly to us, we have a very powerful parsing engine that allows you to describe the structure of that file and process that file on a continual basis as you continue to send it to us, an updated one with new values. There are many different ways of actually sending that file to us, and I'll clarify them in a minute. But let me touch on the other two ways of sending data to Eagle.io. Another path is you can communicate with a data logger. So we have a list of a couple of loggers here that we have documented the path on how they need to be configured up to send data directly to Eagle.io. And more information about that can be found from our documentation on our website and a list of those devices. And it shows you step by step how they need to be set up to send data to Eagle.io. The third option is we have a HTTP API in place that you can interact with to pull data out and massage data in. Obviously, programming skills are required, but that API is available. What we're going to do is start with bringing in data via a text file, which is probably the most popular method used because it's kind of universal and it's very flexible. So as I choose delimited text, the system says, well, how would you like to send that text file data to us? Let me clarify a couple of these transport types. So first of all, we have up the top here, download via FTP client. So if you, at your organization, are managing an FTP client, we can actually grab files from that and read it from your server and bring it to us. We can also download via HTTP, which is a popular method, being able to strip data from the internet if you've got it publicly accessible. We've also got emailing files directly to Eagle.io, SMSing data in, MQTT is supported. You also can read from an Amazon S3 bucket. Dropbox is supported. It's a very simple way of being able to just sync your files into an app that we install into your Dropbox account. We ask for authority to do so, and you just sync all your files to that app, and we are watching that and we'll read from it instantly. And of course, you can upload to FTP, which is again very popular. And we also support now SFTP as well. For this example, I'm going to use FTP as the transport type. It has created for me a unique username just here, okay? So for every data source that we set up and we use FTP as a transport type, it will create a unique username. The same for MQTT, you will create a unique topic, If you're using email as the transport type, it will provide a unique email address, etc. You can also, of course, assign your coordinates here. So if you're sending through latitude and longitude coordinates as sensors, you can assign them here, and we will move your map marker around on the Google Map view in real time as well. As you select next, the system says, excellent, we're going to receive a file from you, but do you have a sample file of it so we can have a look at the structure and have a better understanding on how to process that file moving forward? So I'm going to browse for a sample file of some of that weather station data that we're going to be bringing in. Just got a file on my desktop just here. Just to give you a bit of an idea of what that file looks like in raw format, let me open it up. It's a pretty simple structure. So we have up the top here a labels row, and then we have a date and timestamp, and then records for each of those sensors. So as I bring that sample file into Eagle.io's parsing engine, it has broken that file up into a range of different columns for each sensor. On the far left, we have the timestamp, and everything that is white in the parser, it understands. Everything that is red, it's a little confused about. And you can see here at the top, we've got a red banner just up here on the sensor names. It doesn't quite understand that because we've said each of these columns are actually numbers, and this is actually text data. We need to let it know that is actually the labels row. So we'll let it know that row number 1 is the name of the sensors. It illuminates purple and names each of those sensors for us. If you had a units row underneath that, you could also assign that too. So once I've parsed the text file appropriately, there's a couple of things and advanced things you can do in the text file is you can add join columns. So if you had a date column and a time column, you could join them together. You can disable any of these parameters if you want to. So I can actually disable this particular column here. Okay. If, for example, your timestamp was bright red, and on many occasions it is, because there are some strange formats out there, you can go into the configurator button of the record time and overwrite the format just here so it mirrors what it is in the text file. Instead of being year, month, day, it might be as simple as day, month, year. You need to change that around. But this one parsed automatically, which is great. So as we apply those rules, the system will also support the ability for you to bring in up to 10 different text files per data source. An example of that might be is you have a weather station out in the field. It has 3 data loggers connected to it, all measuring different parameters, and each of those data loggers can send a unique file to Eagle.io to the same data source, so you can have all that appropriate data in the same location. So we support up to 10 different text files per data source. You can add more here if you want to. As we select next, the system says, I've detected these sensors from that particular file. Do you want to bring them into the system? I do, and I can add some units here if I want to. As I finish that off, now on the workspaces tree, we can see that our demo project has a location, and it has a text file source, and it has its parameters in the system. If we look at our parameter values, there are none yet. No data has actually been sent to this data source yet, but it is prepared and ready to go to receive data. So, as an example, as you go out to the field and you configure up that device to FTP the file directly to Eagle.io, you use that unique username that it created during the data source visit as the reference. I'm now going to ingest that sample file data into the system. So as I drop that into my FTP client, you can see instantly in Eagle.io it's processed around 2,000 records and all our values are in. If we look at our chart view, all that data will be charted up instantly in the system. Okay? So that's the process of actually creating a data source, choosing a transport type that's appropriate for your project, parsing the file, and then setting that up to continually send updated files on a regular basis. And Eagle.io will receive that, and you'll start to see more historical trends of your data as it hits our servers. Let's have a look at the alarming functionality in Eagle.io. So as we look at our parameters, an important one is usually the battery voltage. We can go into the properties of that particular sensor and go to the states. From here, we can add a state. Now I'd like to put one in and call it low bad volt. And when that drops below, say, 12.5 volts, I'd like to be notified. I want to drag normal above the low, okay? And you could also have a high alarm threshold as well if you wanted to. as I said, what I might touch on quickly is a couple more advanced features in the alarming. So you can choose to say, well, I want it to drop below 12.5 at least 5 times before you give me an alarm, if it's sort of a sensitive alarm. Most of the time, one's enough. You can also set up when you'd like to be notified, so when it's active or inactive or both or never. You can also categorize your alarms. Who is the alarm for? Well, this is actually a critical alarm. So you can actually categorize them, and when you're sharing access to data, you can ask people to subscribe to certain categories of alarms, and they will receive appropriate alarms. The active message can be sent here, and it might be, please clean solar panel, simply because that battery voltage is getting low. So as I save that, and now I subscribe to alerts and notifications on the battery voltage by clicking the eyeball, I'll receive notifications, which are email and SMS, and that custom message will flow through saying, please clean solar panel. So that is the process of actually setting up an alarm for one of our parameters. If we look at the chart view now, and we look at the battery voltage, we will see that we've got an alarm threshold line on display. So you can actually see when your data is trending towards an alarm state. From here, let's quickly carve up a custom chart. So in the location, and folks, feel free to fire off any questions. We've got a team member listening into any of your questions that you post, and they should be able to give you some feedback. In the location, I'd like to create a chart. We provide 3 custom charts: historic, windrows, and displacement. Let's start with the historical one. It starts off as a blank canvas that in Eagle.io, we'd like to think we've built something that is pretty friendly and intuitive. So we can just drag and drop these sensors directly onto the chart. So let's focus on the battery voltage and also the temperature on this chart. Now that we've got 2 parameters on there, we need to sort of help us to understand this a little bit more. So what we can do is go into the properties of this particular custom chart and set up some axes. And I'm going to set one up for the water level, and we'll position that on the right-hand side. And we'll also position one, sorry, not the water level, it's going to be the temperature. Let me adjust that to temperature on the right-hand side. And this one's going to be for the bat bulb. Excellent. So now that I've got those 2 different y-axes configured up, I need to ensure that they are aligned with the links by going into the battery voltage and ensure the battery voltage y-axis is linked. That's correct. And the temperature is with temperature. And so as I save these 2, instantly in the system, we are now doing some automatic Y-scaling of our different axes, and we've got one position on the right and the left. I want to ask this chart to focus on only 7 days worth of data instead of 3 months. Excellent. So now we can start to analyze that data a bit more, and everything becomes a whole lot clearer. Again, you can zoom in, see a higher resolution of data at any particular point. Let's quickly create a windrows chart. Go into your chart, create a windrows, again, a blank canvas, but I'd like to see the wind direction and the wind speed on this chart. Instantly, we have a windrows configured up, ready to go. So now, in this location, to bring it all together, I want to create a dashboard. So by going into the location and clicking create, we can choose dashboard. Here we can add some tiles. So we have a range of different tiles in our library that you can choose to tell a story of what's going on in at that particular site. So I'd like to see a summary of any alarms that have gone off this particular location. I'd like to see where we're located on the map. I'd like to see a summary of all the parameters coming in. I'd also like to see a couple of our custom charts that we configured up, which was the windrows and the historical chart. So I'll have 2 custom charts in there. And I'll also bring in a couple of gauges that are going to present the data, a couple of sensors that I want to keep an eye on. And I can go into the properties of any of these tiles, and I can actually change the coloring as well. So you can personalize these dashboards pretty quickly. Excellent. So now that we've got the tiles that we want to see on the dashboard, we need to grab the bottom right-hand side of them and build them and let them flow in a way that is meaningful to the project. So I'd like to see 2 large custom charts just here. We'll expand this one out. And I would like to see our location on the map over here. And I'll also bring in a site photo. So we have a remote camera at this particular location. You can set up an attachment source in Eagle.io to FTP or email images from a remote camera directly into your dashboard. So you've got eyes on your assets as well. And then finally, what we'll bring in is one last tile, and it's going to be a summary of some historical data for our temperature and battery voltage that I'd like to keep an eye on. So from here, now that we've got our tiles in place, let me just fix this one up. Very good. Drag and drop. So the alarm summary, I'd like to see any alarms that have gone off for the battery voltage, please. The custom chart, I'd like to see a historical chart just here. And I'd like to see our windrows positioned just here. That's the wrong one. Where is our windrows? Just here. There we go. And finally, our location on the map. We can go into the properties of that location tile, go into the satellite view and zoom in, and that'll give us a better view of Mutton Bird Island, where we're monitoring. For the value list, I'd like to see all the parameters from this particular site, a summary of them. And then finally, I'd like to see the direction and the wind speed, and I'd like to keep an eye on the battery voltage in the historical table so I can see how that's been performing. It's been raining out there for a couple of weeks. I want to make sure they've got plenty of boost. All right, once we've built up our dashboard and we're happy with it, finally finish that off with a little site photo. Let's share the data that we've brought into the system, configured alarms on, created charts and dashboards. Okay, let's share it with the appropriate parties. We share from a workspace level, not a node level, but the workspace. So everything you configure up within a workspace, which might contain multiple locations and multiple data sources, you're always sharing all of that when sharing the workspace. Excellent. Okay. Well, let's share this project. So by going into the properties of the workspace, I go into security and I enter an email address of who I'd like to share it with. I'm just going to put myself in there for this example. We have the flexibility of being able to share data with somebody for a period of time. You might only want to give them 7 days access to this workspace. And then more importantly, we're giving them a user role. A user role is the security privileges that you are giving that person when sharing access. I have a couple of different user roles in my system, from being able to view the data only, okay, to being able to actually operate, manage, and even edit the data, okay? So you obviously got to be careful about what security roles we're giving people, but we explain in detail about what each user role allows you to do. We'll cover that shortly. Let's give this person view-only access. As I add them and I save, they'll receive an email saying you've been granted access to demo project, be able to log in, set up their 2-factor authentication, create an email and enter their email address in, and of course their mobile phone number, and they'll have access to Eagle.io and be able to visualize this specific project that you've shared with them, being able to see the charts and the dashboard, but not be able to manipulate or change anything simply because you've only given them view-only access. There are no restrictions on how many people you would like to share data with, okay? Now that we've brought data into the system, I'd like to touch on a couple of more advanced features that we're offering with Eagle.io. So a couple of them I'd like to touch on is templating. In your account, you'll see that you've got a little jigsaw puzzle icon up the top called templates. And as I expand on my templates icon just here, you'll see that I've got some predefined assets that I've built in there. What the templating feature allows you to do is, as mentioned before, build up some predefined assets like I've done just here. And there's no live data coming into your templates, but they have all the configuration done from charts to dashboards to alarming and your data sources. And what you can do is, if you need to do a large deployment of assets that have a very common theme between them, say 100 sites, all water quality monitoring sites measuring battery level, pressure, flow, you can quickly build up a template and then go into the project that you're working on and go in and create an instance from any of the templates that you have predefined. As I select to create an instance, you can see now in this demo project that I've created, let me close this one off here, we've also got that instance that has been created. It is bright blue, meaning that it's not a traditional data source, but it is an instance from a template. Now, it's not just a copy of the template. It's in direct relationship with it, meaning that if I deployed 100 sites with all the configuration pre-done, I could make a change in the template and it will reflect across all instances that have been created from it, from bringing in a new chart into the dashboard to your 100 sites, or maybe removing a chart or something like that. This saves you a lot of time and ensures consistent configuration when doing a deployment of multiple sites that have a very similar configuration. If you need to set unique configurations to an instance, we do support that by allowing you to always set overrides in the template, which will allow you to do so. We'll be doing some training tomorrow, advanced training, which we'll go into a bit more detail about that, but we'll move on from templating. Another feature I would quickly like to touch on is processing and logic. That is the ability to perform complex calculations on your data on the fly. So in the demo project that we've deployed today, we have a text file source. We can go to that text file source and go to create what we call a number process. That'll open up a programming environment using JavaScript as the language where you guys can implement some of your own business intelligence, put in your own algorithms and formulas to perform complex calculations on a range of different data sets and create new values of meaning and alarm on those scenarios as well. We have heavily documented the processing and logic feature and provided a bunch of example code so that programmers can certainly have a look through that and do some pretty exciting things. You can implement some of your own, as I said, business intelligence essentially. And instead of just making the data look pretty, this is where you can get pretty fancy. We'll also touch on the public access feature. So we built up a dashboard today, and yes, we can share this dashboard with as many people as we would like by giving them an appropriate user role, have them log in and view the data. But what if you just want to make this dashboard public to the world? Well, we've supported that feature as well by going into the properties of the dashboard, by going into security, and turning on down the very bottom just here, public access. It will create a live public URL instantly in the system, okay? You can share this public URL with anyone, okay? Even embed it into your own company website via an iframe, okay? So as I click on this public URL, it has opened up a new browser. It is stripping data from Eagle.io in real time, and now that dashboard is available anywhere. It is interactive too, so once people actually have access to that URL, they can actually zoom in on the charts, see a higher resolution of data. They can choose a time zone, okay? If they're sharing the data around the world, they can choose their time zone, which allows them to make a bit more sense of the charting. And of course, you can have your own company logos being presented up on the top left up here as well, okay? You can also create a public URL for any of your charts. So if you just wanted to share a particular Windrose chart or a custom chart, a historical chart, just go into the properties of that chart and turn on the public access. We also support in Eagle.io data editing within the browser. So it's a pretty unique feature. We've only really brought it out about mid this year and getting some great feedback from our users. So as we look at the chart view, we've got a couple of parameters I'm focusing on here. The battery voltage is one of them, but I want to have a look at the temperature just here. And I noticed there was a vicious spike in my data that I wanted to focus on. And I'd like to confirm that this is actually bad data. This increase of temperature actually didn't occur. So what I can do is I can actually go into edit mode and expose all the raw records for that particular sensor. And I can select the section of records that I'd like to adjust. I can freehand edit the data if I want to, or I can set a new value just here and also offset by value, okay? So once I've made a change to the data, let's just bring it down a little bit, I can also quality code my data. So in your account, you can set up a range of different quality codes and color customize them. And once you've done so, they will appear just here, and I've got quite a few of them, but I'm going to call this uncertain data. And now, as I hover over any of those data records, each of them has been color-coded with a unique quality code. And I can even go into an annotation mode and leave a little comment saying that Oregon corrected, all good. Leave a little note for the team and OK that. And that will live there now. So as I save those changes, the system confirms, do you really want to manipulate 60 values, 60 qualities, and one annotation? I certainly do. And I want to jump out of data editing. And now as I hover over that data, we see the annotations, we can read the notes. We can also filter in and out what type of quality codes we'd like to apply from that chart. So I can actually remove that quality code from viewing if I want to. There we go. And then bring it back in if I want to. We also can do this from a table perspective. So If we look at this data from a table perspective, we can see we can go into edit mode just here. We can choose any of the parameters that we'd like to correct the data for. So this certain section of data needs to be set back to 45. Make those edits and save those changes. So removing spikes in Eagle.io is made simple. Quality coding all of your data sets is also made simple now. On the back end of your account, we also support a bit of detail about how to share your data with the appropriate people. So we have administrators. This is the ability to add people that you trust that get to see every different workspace ever configured up in the account. So trusted business partners. Groups allows you to assign a large number of people that have a common interest in a project into a group just here, entering their email addresses. There might be 100 people. And then you have the ability then to assign a group to a workspace, a project, through the click of a button, and subscribe all of those different people in that group to notifications. So we allow you to, again, manage a large number of people that have a common interest in a project with a couple of basic clicks, instead of doing it from an individual level, which saves time. Roles allows you to have a better understanding of what each user role allows you to do in the system. And there's a description here. By ticking these little boxes, you're giving them privileges. I've got about 6 different user roles in my account, but you can create your own custom user roles if you would like, by saying, well, I want to be able to give someone the ability to read all attachments and subscribe to notifications, but I don't want them to be able to edit the data. That is a new user role that I've created. You can name it something appropriately. And when you go to share a workspace, that will become a 7th user role that you can choose when going to share access to somebody. Workspaces is a summary of all your different projects that you're managing and how many devices is connected for each of those projects and how many people have access to it. Notifications is the ability to upgrade the number of SMSs you would like to be able to send from your account. With all of our plans, we include a range of SMSs, which you can always upgrade for more. $10 buys you another 100 SMS. Customization in Eagle.io. We allow you to rebrand the platform as your own by uploading your own company logos just here. We've given you good detail about the size of the image and what it needs to be, the number of pixels. And once you've uploaded new images just here, simply by clicking on the icon, it'll go straight to your desktop. You can pick up some images that you've saved there, and you can rebrand the platform as your own very, very quickly. Under the public content section, you can upload a large banner of your company or a photo of what you guys do, and leave a bit of text in there as well, maybe your company motto. You can also set up a subdomain for yourself as well, so your company name .eagle.io, and you can use that for a fully rebranded landing page when accessing your data. Just to give you an example of one of them, what they might look like, we've got Pentair.eagle.io as one of our clients, and this is their subdomain and their rebranded landing page when they go to log in to view any of their data. We also support a feature called Managed Accounts. This is the ability to create a sub-account of your account and rebrand it for a couple of reasons. Different end clients that you're managing data for that want to see their company logos when viewing their data, or maybe you're working for a large organization. You can actually separate different departments into different managed accounts with their own rebranding. One might be doing air quality data, the other one's doing water quality data, etc. Okay, so the ability to create managed accounts allows you to rebrand multiple landing pages for, again, different end clients potentially or different departments in your organization. We're going to quickly touch on bringing data in from a Campbell Scientific Data Logger because they are unique in the sense that they allow us to perform two-way communication with the device, and that supports the ability to do two-way communication, which allows remote control aspects, firmware updates to a fleet of loggers out in the field, and of course, updating code and software and so on remotely through the system. So what I'm going to do is, in this location, I want to create another data source. This time, instead of bringing data in via a file by one of the 8 different transport types that we support, I'm going to choose Data Logger and choose a Campbell Scientific Data Logger. And I'm just going to show you the simplicity of actually getting one of these connected to our system. So we can go straight into the model that I have here in the office and select Next. We have 2 different transport types. TCP client, which is if you have an internet address for that device or a fixed IP, you can enter that into here and we'll connect to it instantly. Or you can use TCP callback, and that is where you have a bit of logic in the modem which manages the acquisition from getting the data from the logger to Eagle.io. We also provide a modem which we can ship, which is plug and play with the Campbell devices. So let's use TPC client for this particular example. We have one in the office just here, which I'll quickly connect to. And I want to connect to this logger every 5 minutes. And on the initial collection, I just want the most recent data. As we select next, the system says, do you want to automatically set up all the parameters that you've configured in the actual logger? I do. So now Eagle.io attempts to make a connection to that Campbell Scientific logger. Hope that it's available. It's a busy device. It's trying to make a connection, and what we should see is all the parameter names appear underneath our data source, which is a Campbell PackPass logger. And it should download some of those parameters pretty quickly. So that's the process of actually just getting a Campbell logger connected to Eagle.io. As mentioned before, again, from here, that allows us to create a control parameter in our Campbell logger. It allows us to turn pumps on and off remotely, open gates directly through a dashboard. Okay. Once we've got our data in and we've configured it exactly how we want it, and we've shared it with everybody, what if the project is closing down or you need to get some data out very, very quickly? We'll just touch back on that Campbell logger. We can see now that those parameter names have appeared and the system has downloaded some data, and an alarm has actually gone off on the flow, which is good. So it's, that's all happening. But let's actually export some data out. So we built this project today called Demo Project. I can go into historical data and export that data out. How much data would you like to export? Well, we can do 1 day, 7 days, or 10 years if we want to. We can also apply some aggregates to any of our parameters as well. So we can grab the battery voltage and apply an aggregate of, let's say, the average battery voltage over every hour, and we can apply that. So from here now, what we can do is hit export. That will download all the data as a CSV file onto my desktop instantly. Okay, so very quickly we can get all our data out of the platform and onto our computer very, very quickly. What I might quickly just touch on is a couple of other things via the chart view is the ability to actually create different types of charts. So we've looked at the windrows. We also looked at a historical chart. For our geotechnical users, they use the displacement chart, which is an interesting style chart, which I'll quickly give you a quick visualization on. Looking at the depth here on the axis, and we're looking at, as we're going down a borehole, we're looking at different temperatures of depth. So it's a unique style chart for our geotechnical monitoring, but a popular one as well. So feel free to play around with the windrows, the displacement, and of course our historical one. But just from the standard chart view, we can go into the properties of any sensor and go into the chart view, and that'll allow us to actually chart up different style of charts, from a column chart to a spline finish with a gradient fill. With the data, here we can look at the data via automatic view, which is the default, which will apply a 1 hour interpolated aggregate. We can look at custom, which will give us some more advanced features, the ability to apply many different aggregates from maximum to means to total to averages, etc. And we can also present that data as raw if we want to. Let's quickly apply an average for this particular battery voltage over a fixed period of time. We'll put in every 10 hours. And we can customize that as well by choosing a color for this particular sensor. So I like to see it in bright green, and also I'd like to change the line width to 4. As I save that, instantly in the system, all those modifications are made to our battery voltage. Excellent. So, look, I think that's, I think we did see a quick question there about layers. I think Jesse got back to that one there, but just to give you a quick visual of a KML layer that we support via the map view. So as I flick back to the map view, I'm going to zoom out on a KML that's showing me the real-time water temperature of the Great Lakes of Michigan in the United States. And these KMLs are quite creative, so you can bring in, for example, like here we're looking at real-time water temperature, but you might want to look at KML showing real-time rainfall in that region, especially if you're looking at some weather station data. You can look at a KML depicting the grid lines to a certain region that you're monitoring in. We support the ability to have up to 10 different KML layers per workspace, so pretty flexible there. We're going to wrap this up pretty shortly, so if you've got any other questions, feel free to fire it off. You can send it to all in the chat box up the top there, and Jesse, our team member, who'll be able to come back to you and clarify anything. But that is the process of creating a workspace, a project in Eagle.io, bringing in some text file data, setting up alarms and some charts and a dashboard, and sharing that data with the appropriate members and end clients, and also bringing data in via Campbell Scientific Data Logger. And if you've got any other questions you'd like to send to me privately, just send it through to sales@Eagle.io. I'd be more than happy to continue the conversation about anything that we've discussed today and clarify any questions. Okay, thank you very much and take care. Bye-bye.